Let's get scratching.
We got an explosive broadcast coming to you. Listen up. Sega games, just keep playing them.
We're back. It's the SEGAbits Swingin Report Show. Live. Get ready for Sega interviews and news.
Hello and welcome to the SEGAbits Swingin Report Show Live. It's the last show of the year, and what a year it has been. But especially for Sonic the Hedgehog. So on this episode, we're going to be talking about the four, not the four pillars. The four pillars of Sega was something we all feared back in the early 2010s. But we're going to be talking about the four major things to happen to the Sonic brand. And joining me is going to be Dakota, writer of SEGAbits.com. Say hello.
Hi, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for jumping on. Yeah, Merry Christmas to you as well. And then we have David of Sonic Retro here. Say hello to the fine folks.
Oh, hello. Hi. Hello.
Oh boy. It's the tie. So I brought you guys on just because I know in private and in person I like chatting with you guys about this stuff. So I thought it would be a fun little roundtable conversation. I like to keep things brief, so we're going to be kind of blazing through these 20 minutes per topic, and then we can wrap things up at the end. And so, honestly, diving right into it, let's go to the very first thing that happened in the year. And I'm going to even rewind further back. The very first news story that I could find for Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is, believe it or not, on February 2021, people were talking about Jason Momoa playing Knuckles. Do you guys remember that insanity?
I definitely remember that being like one of the first people. That was like crazy.
Yeah, it was odd because I mean we all knew Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was going to be coming, but that was the early days when we started to get all those little drips and drabs of rumors. But then as things heated up throughout the year, they didn't really have production all that locked down because in April of 2021 we actually got our look at Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles standing in the streets of Canada, I believe, which was actually the finale of the film. So we saw footage of, I believe, Jim Carrey floating around. We saw footage of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles in like statue form standing there. And it revealed Knuckles' design pretty much. The plot synopsis released. So, I mean, they were not keeping this thing a secret even in mid-2021. I almost had to like question if I'm looking at the right year here because it's like we knew the plot of the movie pretty much outside of some of the surprises at the end. Now fast forward, of course, to when the movie finally released, and that was pretty big, that rollout for marketing, merchandising, all that sort of stuff. There were the Fila shoes, there were the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Happy Meals. But I have to ask, because I'm a big fan of like cross promotions. Like I don't care how lame or cheesy or forced it is. If they're gonna do it, I'll be there. But do you guys have a favorite cross promotion for the Sonic 2 movie from this year?
I mean, I guess the only one that really strikes out to me would be the Happy Meal, because I'm always super excited. It made me think back to being a child, a small person about this tall, and getting the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 Happy Meal toys. Mm-hmm. And even though there's been Sonic promotions since, they weren't, it was those weird little LCD games, and your mileage may vary with those, but they got actual toys, at least here in the States. I know in the UK they had cardboard. And
they did, yeah. They're cutting back on plastics, so they had these little cardboard games, and they're ridiculous because what it is it's very ornate. It's cardboard, and then it's raised cardboard with a almost like pachinko game inside of it, but you fold it open the whole board connects, and then it's like Sonic and Knuckles race to the Emerald, and you let go these little tokens, and they race down. And it's like, you could have just given kids like a Sonic trading card, and I think they'd be happier with that.
Or
in
Pogs,
fact,
bring back Pogs.
yeah, they ran out of toys so quickly they started replacing them with those paper toys in America, and kids hated them because I'd go into McDonald's and see them in the trash. They didn't want to keep them. How about you, Dakota? What was your favorite merchandise?
Well, not really anything for like the movie for Sonic 2 and stuff, but like actually one specifically for today and stuff like that. I was looking on Twitter, and they actually for the Washington Capitals for Sonic Prime, they had like a really cool promo like on the ice and stuff like that, where they had like him going through like the different dimensions and everything too, and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool for like a sports team to like do that before like an actual game to do that. So I thought that was like two different sides from like video games and sports actually like coming together, which I thought was like really cool. Would like to see more of that.
Well, that's a great point. Yeah, because I mean the movie 2 kicked off so many cross promotions to the point where we were seeing people who never promote Sonic or advertise Sonic, and it's elevated to this point now where with Frontiers and with Prime, like we don't really bat an eye now at like Mr. Beast doing a whole Sonic Frontiers promotion or them appearing at a hockey game. I mean, I'm sure David could remember Del Taco. You remember that? The Del Taco promotion?
I do. Was that Boom? Was that Boom? Or was it just...
It was, yeah.
Or was it just a Sonic? Yeah. I went to Del Taco. I never got any toy. I never got anything from them. It also reminds me of like, Subway did a not so great Sonic promotion as well. Was that before?
Yes, they were little gears that all connected. When you turned a crank, they all did things.
Right, which is very Sonic-y, I guess.
Right.
but yeah, I guess there's all right, the first Sonic movie didn't have any proper fast food promotion at all. No, there was... Wait, was there like... No, there were the tiny tacos from Jack in the Box. That's what it was.
I think, yeah, that's pretty much
right.
it. They did very... Like, so there's this line of like Mexican like pastries that are bimbo that are super popular, and they did a cross promotion for the first Sonic movie. And so when you go from that to like McDonald's and Tasty Cake, like national brands, it's a huge, I guess the kids call it a glow up, right? So
that is what the kids say. I've heard them.
Yeah, so I mean, even if we're not going to be really discussing the content of the movie itself, which I feel like has been kind of done to death on the podcast circuit by myself, and I'm sure you, David, you've talked about the movie a lot, like the content of it itself, but the just the marketing push behind it was probably the most attention anything Sonic has ever had since Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I'd even say over Sonic Adventure, because I feel like Sonic Adventure was like, great commercial campaign, print campaign, but you didn't see it crossing over into like shoe brands and major celebrities talking about it and going on the talk show circuit. It would be like Jimmy Kimmel would have someone on specifically to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It was just kind of crazy.
Nobody called in Naka into I guess it would have been Jay Leno at that point, right?
Right.
And he's like tell me about games, and you're like, this man doesn't speak English. And it gets really
David,
awkward.
I've got something to tell you. Jay Leno, he burned his face off in an explosion.
I heard about that. I mean, I was never the biggest Leno fan, I guess, but I mean, that's not a good thing. He burned his face.
No, he's coming back though. He's doing Phantom of the Talk Show, where he's going to have half his face covered with a little mask.
Okay. He's using it. I mean, he's very adaptable comedian.
It's funny though. Well, maybe not funny. Kind of tragic that you bring up Yuji Naka, because Sonic is probably having one of his greatest years in decades, and Yuji Naka's having his worst. The man has been arrested twice. He may be jailed right now. We don't know.
Yeah. We do not know where Mr. Naka is.
Yeah.
Mr. Yuji Naka is not all right.
It's just kind of insane because for those who don't know the news, well, he was arrested once for insider trading. But it was a very small amount of money, all things considered. So people said it was probably a slap on the wrist. But the second time it was like in the millions, and it really made me connect the dots to seeing him making iOS games and then showing on social media like buying drones and sports cars. And I always couldn't really connect those dots. I'm like, you can't still have the Sonic money. So what's going on there, Yuji Naka?
Right.
But
he invested the Sonic money into the wrong thing, and then had to reinvest it sometime later into a sure thing. But
right.
unfortunately, it was a bit too sure, I guess.
Do you have a message for Yuji Naka if he's listening?
Oh yeah. I hope he's all right. I hope he gets out soon, and I hope him and Oshima can make up. Maybe
Right.
go out, have dinner, have a kiss. Do you think they ever kissed? I don't know.
Possibly. It would taste like an ashtray, though. Don't they both smoke?
I think most Japanese game developers do.
I distinctly remember someone telling me I was like, so what's it like working with Azuka? And they were like, he smells like cigarettes. And I distinctly remember that when I met him once. It was like, oh yeah, it's like visiting my grandma's house. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But I will say, as terrible as the Yuji Naka stuff was, at least it's not something that we can really like cancel him for. Like, I don't feel skeevy like still liking his games and like liking the fact that he follows me on Twitter. Like
He's not going to tweet at you for a while, but
he hasn't he hasn't tweeted since November. But it's unfortunate because his big thing was that he was really talking shit about the industry and about people he worked with in the past, and he was also like revealing a lot about Reiko Kodama. He revealed her passing, I believe, or revealed more about it than anyone else did, showing images from her funeral. So yeah, crazy year for behind the scenes drama for sure with the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Now, speaking of drama, the next bit that I want to dive into here is Sonic Origins. So I have the very first news story for Sonic Origins. It was at the Sonic Central event on May 27th, 2021. And if you remember that screenshot, it was Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and Sonic CD all lined up there. And that's all they told us. Next news story I got wasn't until April 2022, where the key art had leaked. And then one day later, we had the trailer, new animated cutscenes, modes, everything revealed. And then very soon after, the game released, right? Yeah, they were delisting the older titles. Yeah. They were previewing it on streams, and then it came out on Sonic's birthday. So, yeah, I don't know. I saw a lot of people talking about how, no one's talking about Sonic Origins anymore. But I'm kind of like, what is there to talk about? It's a compilation of games we've already played. There's only so much you can say about the cutscenes. Dakota, you... I haven't really heard your opinions on Sonic Origins. Are you neutral? Are you hot? Are you cold? Where are you at with that?
I think it's actually like probably one of the best like compilations you can play for the classic games right now without having a PC and stuff, without mods and everything like that. If you're a casual fan and stuff like that, it's definitely like worth the buy and stuff like that. Even for like $40, you still get like, all four of the games and stuff together with them. And they come in widescreen. They come, with the best version, with the Whitehead version as well and stuff. And you also get a couple of modes and stuff. Like Mirror Mode's actually a really cool, addition, in my opinion, and stuff. It's, it's not like, the full package either and stuff, because it's, there's some like some customizable modes and stuff that might be like missing stuff that you can, do with like mods and stuff with PC.
Right.
But overall, it's a really good compilation stuff for the Genesis games. So.
Yeah, David, counterpoint, tear it to shreds.
Oh yeah, right. The gold standard of Sonic compilations is Sonic Jam for the Saturn, and everyone that's come out since, I compare it, and it's still, even though Origins is the closest I think we've gotten to that gold standard, it falls short. Unfortunately, I want I was hoping, like, the games themselves, it was nice to get the Whitehead versions, but it felt like there should have been a little bit of cleanup instead of it just being basically CD 1 and 2 as they were when they first
Right.
came out. 3, I think, for the most part, is fine, but it does have some wonky bits where casual player will never notice it, but if you're, like, super obsessed, it's 3 feels more like Mania than it should, and it's like, oh, and I understand it's a retro engine, but at the same time,
Right.
those things could be tweaked. And also then, like, the extras, there are some neat extras, but it's still missing extras that were in previous compilations,
Mm-hmm.
and the ones that are there are missing important context. There's one image in particular that seems like it's from the manga, where it's like Sonic and someone that looks like Knuckles, but he's a chef or something, but it's probably not Knuckles. It's just sort of a coincidence thing.
Mm.
And like, somebody asked Hoshino and Oshima, like, or somebody like asked, like, hey, what is this drawing? And they both went, I don't know. It's like, oh, great, because there's zero context for it in the game.
Right.
They just throw it in there, and then the creators that have been reached out, hey, can you give more context? They have looked at it blankly and said, I have no idea what this is.
Right. Well,
So
it's interesting you'd
yeah.
bring that up, because I have Atari 50 right here, and this is a compilation where they not only did a solid job with the games, but they almost hired a separate team to do all of the historical research and really tell a story, give context to a lot of the behind-the-scenes materials. Like, it's essentially a museum that just happens to have games. And I don't expect that for Sonic, but I definitely get what you're coming from. Where you should. Well,
I mean, at this point, because if you're
right.
re-releasing these same games over and over, Sonic Jam was like a museum in the 90s, like along the same lines as the Namco Museum games, and then it's just always been not ever since. So it's like, if you're going to re-release the same games, it being in widescreen is fine, but it should
Right.
have that historical context and the story behind the games and everything. So that's why it just sort of falls flat to me.
It's funny because with Sonic Jam they had that whole museum mode, and they'd play this nostalgic music, but you have to remember that game came out 6 years after the first Sonic game. So it's like if we got a compilation today looking back on a game that came out in 2016 and it had this like this nostalgic music playing. Remember 2016, man? Oh, those were the days of gaming.
Just feel far away.
Right, but I hear you. I really do love the iOS, and by iOS I should be saying the like Apple TV versions of Sonic 1 and 2 and CD, because they are in my opinion, like the best way to play them with like your preferred console controller of choice, on the big screen with all the bonuses. There were like little bits that they stripped out, like Proto Palace Zone is missing in Sonic 2. You really have to hunt to do a lot of the codes. I think I was actually just sitting there at home on the day of release or prior to it, because I got a review copy, inputting release dates, until I could unlock them. And it was just, I feel like they could have made level select a little more obvious, and all those secrets, maybe just bake them in. Don't have us doing codes all the time. Like, it's fun, but the coins mode being only the 16:9 was a little odd. It kind of reminds me of, I mean, this is a weird comparison, but like when you buy movies and there's like a director's cut, and then they give, and you're like, oh man, the director's cut's coming out in 4K, and then you get the release and it's like, oh no, the director's cut's on Blu-ray, the 4K release is the theatrical version, but if you want to see the deleted scenes, they're in 4:3 on the Blu-ray disc in the options menu. And it's just like, that's kind of the vibe I got from Origins, where all the pieces were there, but they just didn't present it in the way that they totally could have. Like 16:9 classic mode does not exist for no reason outside of, remember 4:3, but those aren't the originals in 4:3. They're the remade versions, just in a smaller frame.
Scaled down.
Right. So it's kind of odd that you essentially remade these from the ground up, and yet you're presenting it as though we're playing the original versions in classic mode, when we absolutely are not.
Right.
But I still really enjoy the compilation. I feel like it's still in the oven, though. Like, there's got to be a Origins Plus coming around the corner. There's no physical release. I mean, I see David there. He's nodding because he knows what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So, Dish.
Right. No, I mean, I feel like there's been rumblings. I mean, we certainly... there was someone who made a very public tweet about, like, oh, I got this email surveying, asking about more stuff in Origins. And it's like, oh...
Right.
Like... And I guess it does seem like an obvious game plan, because they did the same thing with Mania. It comes out as a digital-only game. There's a couple small bits and pieces that feels like, oh, if they had extra time, they could have tweaked that and cleaned that up and added that, and then Plus comes out, and you get the improvements that
Right.
were missing from the original. And so it's like, it feels like Origins might do it, but I also wonder how much they actually would change in a physical
Right.
version. I hope it's not just, oh, it's on a cart and we added chaotics and that's it.
I mean, I wouldn't say no to chaotics. I also think it's interesting.
No, I want chaotics in there, but
There's elements of Spinball and Flicky's Island in there for whatever reason, and in like the menu screens, and yet the games are not there. It's so odd. It's almost like they canceled them, like they had plans but they didn't do it.
Right. I mean,
I don't know.
If
I don't know.
If they release a physical version with 3D Blast, though, it's like I would want the Saturn version too. But I feel like that's never going to happen because nobody understands how the Saturn works. Right.
That's a great point. But I mean, fingers crossed we get an Origins Plus. I think that would be really fun. I do think, like, canon-wise, because you're the canon guy, canon-wise, it is kind of wild that they elevated Spinball and 3D Blast to, like, the classics lore. I also want to talk about the two bully foxes. What are your guys' takes on those? The guys who created Tails, essentially.
They made them in a lab. They're fine in Origins, but I don't know if I want to see them all the time, because I know they do appear in something else, which I guess isn't much of a spoiler because it's one of the preview things. But it's like
Right.
They're okay. It works in Origins. It works in the sense of, like, we have 30 seconds to tell a story instead of a longer time frame to go about it slower and closer to whatever it originally was.
Right.
We still don't know their names. Apparently it's a secret.
Oh. Well, isn't in the European comic there are two bully foxes, and people were speculating that it was like Scratcher and something else or something like that? Are you aware of that?
No.
There's two bullies in Fleetway. There's two bullies that, like, is in, like, Tails' backstory, and people were speculating that they carry those names over. I mean, who knows? But I like how it's a secret, you know?
I mean, because people have asked Tyson, and he's like, I can't say. And apparently Zuka gave them names, and you're not allowed to say what they are. Which is weird, but okay, I guess. Well, it'll continue.
Why can't
to be
it be like the George Lucas approach, where people are like, "Hey, George, what's the name of that alien in the back?" And he goes, "It's your name backwards." You know, it's like, really? It's Mott. Oh, what's your name, Tom? Okay, yeah, it's Mott. Mott's the alien's name. Yeah, but maybe it's David and Dakota.
It could be. Although I'd feel bad if I was bullying Tails.
Would you bully? I'd bully. I'd yank his tails a little. I just love how they're doing this. They're like yanking his tails. It's funny.
Right.
It's funny.
Do that, and then he, like, raises up his legs, just like a...
Yeah, I love how Sonic's just, like, he runs by and then Tails, like, learns to fly in that moment. He doesn't really...
Yeah.
It's interesting. And then in Prime, again, Sonic's like, you can't fly. All you gotta do is spin your tails. And Tails is like, oh, I can fly. Spoiler alert. Anyway, so moving on to the next pillar we have, and I think this one might take a little more time to talk about, it is Sonic Frontiers. And that name was actually trademarked and revealed November 8th, 2021. We saw that black and white trademark text appear. And it was not until, man, how far out? There was a Sonic Frontiers reveal at the Game Awards. So we had that initial trailer with the little symbol. And then we started to get little peeks at what eventually was the big trailer reveal of the game. That was December 9th, 2021. And from there, it was just constant info dropping. And then it kind of dried up for a while. I'm sure you guys remember how crazy the community went not getting any information. Dakota, what are your memories of those insane times on social media?
Well, I remember. I think it was about a month before the reveal trailer, back in November, that there was a couple of Reddit posts and stuff like that of QA testers and stuff, basically giving about a lukewarm reception of the game and stuff like that. And it was still kind of described the open world a little bit, but not to overwhelming, still kind of in a beta test and stuff like that. It kind of felt like for what the QA testers were, lining up. So I kind of just, for me personally, took that with a grain of salt and stuff like that. And just at this point, I've learned, and just just wait for gameplay. So
absolutely, yeah. I'm David. Are you online much? Do you use the social medias all that often?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
There are times that I'm on them way too much, and then I'm like, I gotta stop, and then don't look for 3 days or something.
Do you recall that crazy time where people felt like they were owed a answer on what's going on with Frontiers? What are the names of every island? How long is the game? Who are the enemies?
Yeah, people were not satisfied with the dripping of info. That sounds wrong. But yeah, well, I think it's because right after Forces came out, it's like, well, there'll be another Sonic game, don't worry. And then you waited until that first CG trailer that didn't tell you anything, didn't tell you the name of the game, didn't show. And even at that point, before that trailer, people were getting obsessed. I need to know that anything's happening, and all they would get is, oh yeah, they're working on something, don't worry. But I guess everyone needs to worry, and maybe it's because a lot of people were sort of lukewarm at Forces, so it's like, oh, the last 3D game didn't satisfy me, I need to know when the next one's coming out, and I need to know exactly what's going on with it. I need to know every single detail. And it probably didn't help that the first gameplay footage was just sort of without context, seemed pretty boring and empty and barren, and it's gave no sense as to what the game was really supposed to be, because looking at that footage and playing it, there is this wide disconnect.
Right.
Yeah, looking at the footage, you thought, oh, they're gonna make another bad game. This is it. It's over. We wasted 5 years. And then it finally comes out and you're like, oh, I understand it now. I think this is actually really good, all things considered. And
yeah,
it's just so I would hope that maybe when we're gearing up for the next, whatever the next game is, that people will be a bit more relaxed, because we've had we had something that most people have liked. A lot of Sonic content in general. It doesn't feel like this vast wasteland of nothing.
Right.
And then people freaking out and going, I need to know every little detail because I've been hungry.
Right.
But, if you're starving, you don't want to overeat. That's bad. You want to eat slowly and get your body used to it. So
yeah,
I'm sure.
I forget that there are people who are not general Sega fans like myself who are totally fine if they can go a year without a Sonic game because there's other stuff coming. I also forget that there are people who are purely Sonic game fans, and so when they go through that 5-year drought, it's murder for them. They go so far as being well, I only like the modern 3D games, so I don't care about Origins. I don't want a racing game. I don't care about racing. So yeah, there really wasn't that much for them to chew on. And on top of that, Forces really wasn't the game to like pass your time on. Like it's a very short game. I think it's a 4-hour game in total. And if you just do the gameplay, like just the level gameplay, it's about the same length as playing all the cyberspace stages twice in Frontiers. Like it's very short. And so it's just, you know, that there's not a lot of content there to keep you satisfied, which is why I think people were both really upset that there wasn't more revealed leading up to Frontiers, and also, you know, because I think wisely Sega held off, and I think it paid off. I'm one of two minds. I either think Sega realized they were doing a really bad job marketing the game and internally something changed, or they were like, no, we are going to hold off until we really start revealing things, until we're like a month out. And even then, we're not going to be showing anything past, what was it, the second island, right? No, third island. And then we didn't see islands 4 or 5, which granted aren't that different from the first island. But still, we didn't really learn of what Sage was. We didn't see any of the behind the scenes, like the flashback stories on the 4th island. So, you know, I think now people kind of forgot about that. It's been memory hold. The drought and the fact that Sega wasn't really marketing it. I'd hesitate to say it was bad marketing. It was just an absence of marketing. I think the only thing that really fell flat was the fact that they were showing previews, like very early preview builds to people, and then they were just giving them like 15 minutes of raw footage, and then the people were just uploading them without any context. That was really odd. Do you remember those IGN reveals? Those were very poorly handled. I mean, the premiere for the YouTube video, and then everyone's sitting there and waiting, and then it's just like no music, just sound effects and Sonic running around.
Right. I mean, just adding music helps when you're running around and maybe not doing a whole lot, because you can run around in Frontiers and not do a whole lot, but you can also run around and do a million things. It's a different kind of Sonic game in the way that it's structured. But when you come off of, oh well, you know, the Boost games and Lost World, and there's an expectation of what they're making, you are going to look at that and be confused and go, hey, is there anything to do in this game? Is this even going to be fun? I can't tell.
Right.
And IGN did not help. I mean, I guess they just were supposed to drop it. Did they go, oh hey, maybe we should have edited it? I know later releases from them helped make it look better.
Right.
But man, even just not having the music felt like a weird choice. Because what's wrong with holding? Yeah.
I think what they did is that they gave them they said, because I think that was their gameplay. So they said, you can record your gameplay footage, but we're not having music on it. And I think what the intention was is that they would have all this footage with no music that they can cut together for an IGN like video article where they would talk over it. They could put their own music over it, but you'd have the sound effects baked in, which is how B-roll footage comes to us when we get those press kits. And I'm guessing IGN was just like, well, we're not in the business of making a commercial for your game. That's not what we're doing. You gave us footage, and Sonic fans are ravenous. So if you're giving us 15 minutes of footage and you say this is all we can show, then we're going to show all 15 minutes of footage to get, you know, all the clicks and all the impressions we can, instead of chopping it up into a 3-minute little video that is essentially a commercial for your product.
And I wouldn't be surprised if music wasn't even finalized, even all the way in June and stuff at that point and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. And, you know, when you watch the gameplay of Sonic running around in silence, out of context, it does look very boring. But then when you play the game and you're set up with a cutscene and there's that twinkly little piano music playing as you run about, and you know your objective, and you like see the sunrise and the sunset and like asteroids fall and like all these things are happening, that all that mix really creates the experience of what the game is, and that's where those magical little moments happen. And you don't get that from a 15-minute musicless gameplay of someone just running around not really knowing what they're doing. Dakota, I know you bought the game for every single platform. I'm not gonna put it on the screen, but you were put on blast by a Twitter account that basically like shames people for enjoying things. Correct?
Correct.
So tell me about that.
They want to talk about having no life themselves.
Right?
So, well, it's just as I saw more footage like come up and stuff, I kind of figured it was going to be a good game, and just for everything for all the people that were involved in supporting it and stuff, I figured well, might as well just support the game developers behind it and stuff like that. It seems like this time they actually really like tried this time and actually tried to please as much fan feedback as they could and stuff like that. And for the most part, I think for the open zone, they think they knocked it out of the park. It's a really good prototype, I think, for what would come for the next game and stuff like that.
Right.
Guarantee, albeit because you only got 3 islands and stuff like that. So I would say there's a little bit of like crunch with the Island 4 and 5 being repeat from the first one. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really good. I like the versatility of his moveset. The fact that, you can actually, spin attack like in Sonic 1 into an enemy in 3D plane, actually back into it. I don't think you could do that in Forces. So like it was actually nice to see that back into it. So
yeah.
But yeah.
So you're positive about it. How about you, David? I don't think I know if you like the game or dislike the game. It sounds like you're positive on it.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely enjoyed Frontiers. I enjoyed it way more than I thought it would. I still had a lot of reservations going into it. But I think sitting down, going through like that very beginning of the first island, a lot of it all just sort of gelled together. And like I get what they're doing. I get. I also haven't played like a million Assassin's Creed games and stuff, so maybe some of it feels more novel to me than it would to other people, because I know that there were a lot of like, oh, this is just Assassin's Creed plus Zelda plus Shadow of the Colossus plus anime, because but also it has the veneer of Sonic, even if there are some people who criticized the art design and said, oh, well, the islands themselves don't seem very Sonic-y, but at the same time, it's like Sonic's always going to different places, and he's gone to very realistic locations, surreal ones. It just sort of slots in like, hey, Sonic's world is full of many different things.
Right.
I liked how it controlled.
Exactly.
I liked the way things changed. The move Sonic, it didn't feel overloaded, because when they said skill tree, it was like, oh god, is there going to be like, are you going to have to wait five hours before you can jump properly or something? But the only like, and I enjoyed the story and the characterization, the added lore. The only real downside, I think, was the cyberspace levels, because they feel different than the rest of the game. Yeah. And it's very noticeable. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much like, oh, it's reused level layouts, even though it is kind of a shame. Except on Island 5, there's some new ones, which is
all of a sudden
nice.
Yeah.
Right. All of a sudden, yeah. Maybe they should have spread that out between them all, but
right.
Like the new ones are okay, but I do kind of hope that maybe this is the end of the boost gameplay in general. I'd rather they focus all their attention on the open zone concept and the platforming you could do in there, instead of saying, well, we need to make more traditional Sonic levels, because I'd rather have a super solid open zone, because boost is fine, but we've got a lot, and it feels like they're not 100% sure how to do it. And I'd rather they focus on something that it seems like maybe they do know how to do.
Right.
Which is an open world sort of feel.
Yeah, talking about the aesthetics, it is very unsonic-y, but at the same time, I looked at it and it felt very unique. It looked like they actually put thought into the aesthetics and how the I guess the ancients really built their society, how they functioned, and just the architecture was I think unique. It didn't really seem like, I guess I think back to Sonic 06, which looked like they just took a bunch of assets from like welcome to your first 3D game developer kit and were like, oh, look, Italian Village and Old Man and I don't know if you've ever used 3D Movie Maker, Microsoft's old make your own 3D movie, but you were limited to a dozen characters, a handful of locations. You could only change very basic costume things. And so when you shared your videos out, everyone had the same actors. And that's kind of how, I don't know, 06 felt to me. Whereas here, everything felt unique. It just didn't feel like something I've seen before in Sonic. But if I were to sit back in 10 years on Sonic's 40th anniversary, or in 20 years on Sonic's 50th anniversary, because that's going to happen whether we like it or not, and you were to show me like a still from every game, I really think Frontiers would, even 20 years from now, stand out and look unique, and I could say instantly, that's Frontiers, just as how I could look at, I could look at Unleashed and say, okay, well, there's the Werehog, there's Spagonia, like there's things that feel memorable, iconic, unique to the game itself, whereas if you were to show me a screen from Generations or Forces, or even Lost World in some cases, I'd kind of be like, oh, which one is that? It looks like Forces, right? And like, no, that's Generations. It just really feels like those games kind of lacked something to really call it their own. And this seems like the first time in a long time that Sonic Team really went above and beyond to give you a new setting with new characters. And then also talking about DLC, like they just yesterday, and I'm wearing it now, the Holiday Cheer DLC dropped. And it's just like, it's free, you can't complain with Sonic in a Santa outfit, though I would like to see other holidays represented, maybe a Jewish Sonic with yarmulke or something. But still, it's cool. And then they did that rollout for 2023. Like, this game is not finished yet. Just going through there, we've got Update 1, which I presume is going to drop maybe in the winter, early winter. And then we've got a spring update for Sonic's anniversary. And then that new playable characters and new story update, which I'm hoping is not overhyped. I'm hoping people aren't going to be getting like cyberspace stages just with those 3 characters. But it's really something. Just the U-turn that Sega and Sonic Team has made here, because now we're not paying $1.99 for Super Sonic like with Sonic Forces, which and then I remember Aaron Weber being like, hey, good news guys, you don't have to pay for it, it's free. And I'm like, but why did we have to pay for it initially? Like, where's the apology? Right. I'm not hearing it. Right.
It was a far more nervous Sega who was like, oh, like, we're not going to make any money on this, we got to really just stretch it out. $2, right. Come on, it's cheap.
Right. And yet now, the game's retailed for $60, and it keeps seeing sales, which are probably doing wonders for it. I mean, they probably said to themselves, we could either release this game at $40 or $50, or we could do it at 60, and every few months do a big sale, and then we get to the top of the charts. And they have, like, this thing sold 2.5 million already, which I think did that surpass Unleashed? I'm not a big numbers guy. Possibly
around there, I think.
Yeah. So it's just it's wild, the success that we've seen now with a Sonic movie, a 3D Sonic game, and the fact that it's the 2D game that really struggled this year, if anything. And I hesitate to say struggle, because I think Sonic Origins did what it set out to do. I think the greatest thing that it did do was bring Sonic 3 and Knuckles back into the fold. even if it's a compilation that still needs a little more time in the oven. But yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to say about Frontiers because I feel like it's not finished yet. And I'm really looking forward to talking about it more in 2023, seeing more characters, story. Of the content coming out, do you guys have something you're really looking forward to in those first two phases? And just to remind you, there's a jukebox, a photo mode, new challenge modes, Sonic's birthday, which I think is funny, open zone challenge, and then new Coco.
New Coco?
Hot Coco.
New Coco.
Hot Coco.
Oh, wow.
The open zone challenges sound pretty cool.
Yeah, that seems neat. The graphic also kind of implies that, hey, maybe you'll be able to replay those the Titans on their own, which would be neat. Like the way it's presented, like one of the challenges shows Supersonic flying around, right? In the picture.
So the graphic shows, I have it up here, I'm going to zoom in on it for the viewers. It shows two things. It shows progression from cyberspace stages, so it seems like you can sit down and just play through one after another without being bumped back to the menu. It's possible they might be new layouts for cyberspace. That would be kind of cool. And then the other one, yes, it does show Sonic battling like sub-bosses and then a final boss, so I have to imagine it's probably going to be like fight Spider, fight, I don't know, whatever the animal's name is, and then you fight the final boss of that area, which I'd much prefer to the limited save system they have, because what I was doing was I was saving right before the end of every island, and then I can go back. But then I was like, I had this neurotic thing where I'm like, wait, if I go back and play my old save, will the autosave overwrite my current save? And if that's the case, maybe I need to do a save of my current save, but then I'm going to overwrite one of the older saves. And I got to the point where I'm basically only able to like replay one of the Titans. So what's the point? No holiday cheer over here for me.
Sonic 3 and Knuckles had what, 8, 9 save files? Man, Frontiers has got 3. Why are we going down?
I don't know.
In Heroes, they supported up to 99 save files.
Why?
I don't know if any.
Yeah.
I don't know if any GameCube memory card could actually let you fit 99 on there. But
that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's insane.
I guess.
I'm looking forward to Sonic's birthday because that's the big mystery one there for me. I'm hoping it's super cheesy. I'm hoping like it's just like confetti falling all the time and streamers everywhere and like happy birthday music playing nonstop. I just hope it's like the most gaudy event ever that just completely ruins the game. I mean, I've already been playing through my I have it on Switch, the one I've played the least. The Xbox one I have, I think, is 30 hours. The Switch one's only 4. But I was like doing a really emotional cutscene with Amy, and I'm dressed as Santa. She's like, Sonic, the Coco are dying? And he's like, man, Amy, this is too much. And he's like wearing a Santa hat. Like, I look forward to him like talking to Sage about her, her deadbeat dad while he's dressed as Santa. I think that'd be pretty good. Maybe she sits on his lap. Before we move on from Frontiers, I do want to talk about Sage. What are your guys' thoughts on this character? Do you think she has a future in the franchise? And we don't need to do spoiler alerts because I'm sure most people listening have played it. But Sage, she doesn't go away forever. And we see that with the new story material in Update 3 that she's going to be there. So, David, thoughts on Sage? Like her or love her?
Right. I think she's cool. I think it's a character addition that makes sense. We've had a lot in a lot of auxiliary media, and then eventually with Colors, Orbot and Cubot. Like, Eggman's had a lot of sidekicks. He's had a lot of people to yell at. But it's nice to have a character that, well, I guess, seems somewhat competent, likable. Like, there's more going on there than just comic relief or silent but deadly, which, metal being the silent but deadly type. So it's nice to then get those extra layers of Eggman. I mean, most of the time he is the bad guy. He's a bit silly. He's a bit crazy. Like, that's who Eggman is. But it's nice to know that there's other layers there, and she's able to bring those out. We haven't really gotten that since, I guess, Adventure 2 with the Gerald Robotnik and Maria backstory,
Right.
and what that implied. Even though we didn't dive super deep into Eggman then. Frontiers, the Egg Memos definitely does a lot of the heavy lifting, because there's only, I guess, so much that they can do time-wise, story-wise. I mean, it's still a pretty hefty story even without the memos, but those flesh it out. And so I like her. I definitely want to see more of her. I don't know exactly what form she'll take. And if they do introduce her into the comics, then it would be kind of interesting to see her and Belle, the Tinkerer, play off of each other, because they're both essentially the children, the daughters of Eggman.
Ooh.
And right, so it feels like a story that, if Sage is coming back, that's one you want to tell, because one is Eggman made Sage, and he's like feeling very fatherly to her in a way that he isn't prepared for, and Belle is someone he made when he thought he was somebody else and has kind of discarded her. And so there's something interesting you could do there. So I definitely want to see her again.
Did you just drop the name of the title of your young adult fan fiction, The Daughters of Eggman? I'm looking forward to reading that.
That's right.
Sage awoke. Yeah. Sage awoke. It was a bright sunny day in Green Hill Zone. She turned and saw Belle. I don't know. Like, you could do a lot of angsty stuff there, but
she is in that picture that they just put on Twitter as well. Where you see Eggman making her, digitally making her shoes, which is it's kind of a neat little thing. He's cute. In a digital recreation of Final Egg, and she's sitting in a thing, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want you to be barefoot. Here, put on some shoes." Is this official? Yeah, like, it's if you go to the Japanese Sonic Twitter, it was posted a few hours ago, I think.
Oh my gosh, I missed this.
Oh yeah.
You know what? It's Musk. He's suppressing all of my Sonic fan art. No, official Sonic art. Boy, that annoys me. Isn't Sonic official?
Yeah, I think.
He is to me.
I got it. Okay, I got it here. I got to bring it up if we're going to talk about that amazing
I guess
art
it's always the hashtag Sonic Picked.
Oh
P-I-C-T.
my God.
Oh.
I think I love this picture. Let me see. Bring it up here.
It definitely leans into the fatherly.
Oh, look at that. That's so cute.
Yeah.
He made her shoes. David, you're warming my heart. This is a Christmas gift that I'm... Oh my goodness. Look at that. Shoes. It's interesting. You brought up Sonic Adventure 2, and that we haven't had a Sonic Adventure 3, but this is a very interesting character progression. We've got Maria, and it never really felt like Eggman acknowledged Maria, and now he suddenly has a daughter, and he almost like came to that realization at the end of the game. He's like, I have a daughter, which I thought was very interesting. So do either one of you suddenly realize you had a daughter? No, we don't have to go there.
Right.
But
showed up like, so 18 years of not alimony, child support. Like,
yeah,
what?
Right. Yeah. Dakota, what are your thoughts on Sage before we move on to our final pillar?
I'm in the same boat. I like her. She's good. She's a good foil, I think, to Eggman and stuff like that. Kind of has the same, similar, evil, mastermind, but she's calm, cool, collected, and stuff like that, composed to him and stuff like that. So, I think she'll they'll run a few games and stuff like that for her in the future. The only thing I just hope that it doesn't take away like the more seriousness like tone of her and stuff like that and everything
Yeah.
too. And like it doesn't go like with Orbon and Cubon and do like more like less serious like comedic routes, which wouldn't be bad and stuff, but like to her to have like this kind of game for like as much as she got like built up and stuff like that, and to end on like the tone and stuff of Frontiers and stuff of what happened to her at the end and stuff, I think it'd be really cool and stuff if she was like involved in like like really like big projects like for him, like I'm gonna take over the world again and stuff instead of just like, oh, I'm just going to like kidnap these small little creatures and stuff in this little island,
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's gotta keep going big now. I don't think he's going back to like, oh, there's a North Island, I must take this over. Yeah, but yeah, I like her. I'm looking forward to more of her. And then the last piece we have here is Sonic Prime. Now this is a Netflix series. For the longest time, it was just an N with Sonic running through it as the logo, until the title was revealed. It was revealed February 1st, 2021, and it was said to be a 24-episode series. Now, as we record this, only 8 episodes have dropped. Some people incorrectly think that it is season 1, and they're like, man, that was the cliffhanger? How disappointing. But no, it's... They've wrapped. I'm wondering if there's even going to be a season 2. I mean, it's possible, but like the way these sorts of things work, like they work on 24 episodes, and if they do order another season, a lot of the team might have moved on to other projects. So we don't even know what the end is. It might, wrap it up in a nice little bow. But what we've seen so far are 8 episodes. The first one actually premiered in Roblox. Did either one of you regress to an 11-year-old and jump into Roblox to watch the premiere?
No.
Absolutely not.
I thought about it very briefly and then went, I can wait the 5 days.
I heard it
Yeah.
slows down your computer big time, so I'm not taking that chance.
How is it that I'm the only one who did it? I was
Have you
at
been playing a lot of Speed Simulator? Is that
a
what you've been
little
doing?
bit, but I haven't
Yeah.
been on in a lot. Like I tried it when it first came out, and then I realized how difficult it is to unlock anything. Like it's like collect 10,000 orbs, and I'm like, maybe you get them quickly. And then I'm running around. I'm like, I played for 30 minutes and I have 10 orbs. Like, what am I doing wrong?
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I took a long break from it, but I came back and it's changed greatly. I almost felt like Sonic did in Sonic Prime, where I'm like, where am I? And I was like looking around. I'm like, oh, they moved the doors over here, and like there's a whole new menu system. Like, yeah, it keeps moving. I guess that was another big thing to happen this year, but it's just kind of like it's like Sonic's little side gig. I don't know. It's a very strange project, but to tie Prime into it was just bizarre. And yeah, you'd show up and it almost felt like Sonic Jam, like there was a movie theater, and you walk into it, and then it's actually a big outdoor space with the screen on a loop-de-loop, and you can actually jump up onto the screen and jump in front of it and run around and annoy people as they're watching the show. I caught the very first screening, so that one was fun. But then I realized it looped again and again and again for like a day or two, or maybe even a week. It just kept going. But it was strange to watch it in that setting, because you don't zoom into the screen. You're like watching the screen from your screen. And when like something explodes, your camera, like your character shakes. If Sonic loses rings fly out of the screen, so it's like a 4D adventure.
Oh,
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it was cool, but then every time it shook, your screen would go a little off center, so you'd have to like adjust your camera to look at the screen again. I actually asked my daughter. I asked my daughter before we recorded. I said, "What was your favorite Sonic thing this year?" And she was like, watching the first Sonic Prime. And I was like, inside the game, and she said, yeah. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting one. But I think she thought it was so odd, because you're watching a TV show inside of a video game. But yeah, when I finally sat down to actually watch the first episode without all the crazy Roblox things going on, I enjoyed it. There's a surprising amount of like lore, not so much that you get in Frontiers, but still the fact that they were referencing events in Origins, that, to be quite honest, I think they did the best job integrating Shadow into Sonic's world since when? Like, David, when was the last time like we had a Sonic piece of media outside of the comics that really integrated Shadow?
Oh, so like outside of the comics, outside
Because
of the
boom,
games,
he was just there.
right. I guess the teaser at the end of Sonic 2, that was. Other than that, it does feel like, yeah, like in Sonic Boom, they didn't know what to do with Shadow. I mean, Sonic Boom also suffered from like, oh, here's Shadow, but without any of his backstory or his history. So I guess he's just angry, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's fine. He exists because people like him, but it was that was sort of a hollow version of Shadow. And then I mean, even in the games, it's not like we've gotten a lot of Shadow.
Yeah.
He's in. They try in Forces, but there isn't. You know, he gets his own little mini campaign, and I guess that's the most they did with him since '06, really.
Yeah.
He's in Generations, but he's just a boss. It's not anything deep, and right, he's not in Lost World. He's not in Unleashed. He's not really. Yeah, like they roll him out, say he exists, and then move on. So
right.
They, at least it feels like they're going to do more with Shadow in Prime. It's a lot of teasing because it does feel, oh, well, this is just the first third. I do wonder when they were making the show if they thought it was going to be split up into like I'm assuming 8-episode chunks, or if they thought all 24 would come out at once.
Yeah, there's a comment we have here from Levi Church who says they are still animating Sonic Prime. So it seems like they're still working on that initial 24 episodes. So, yeah, right. Interesting. But yeah, what was your thought, Dakota, when you saw Shadow appear? And do you think they utilized him well in this series so far?
I think so far he's been pretty good and stuff. So he hasn't really done like, too much, as of like right now for like the story overall and stuff. But I like his characterization and stuff, like the fact like when he gets when he gets like slammed to the wall and stuff like that, and then he gets like mad, but he like kind of like composes himself and stuff. Like that's like, yeah. I think that's like good characterization, like for like him and stuff like that, and the fact that he's just trying to like keep to himself, but basically like trying to keep everything also like protected and stuff like that, kind of call back to a little bit to like Sonic Adventure 2 with like Maria and stuff. So yeah. I so far he's been good. I'd like to see a little bit more of him and stuff as the the series goes on.
He's kind of playing the role of Silver also, because Sonic like did something bad and Shadow's really the only one with the power to kind of break through that and try to connect with Sonic to tell him that he did something catastrophic. So I like that sort of idea where their connection is really the fact that they kind of have shared powers, so that they're the only two who can really break through this whole shattered dimension thing and communicate with each other. I find the whole dimension thing kind of odd. I know a lot of people were probably expecting like Into the Spider-Verse here, where there would be actual like cannons from like IDW and Archie and like Fleetway, but I think that's a little too, I don't know, that's a little too in the weeds for something that's like a Sonic Netflix show. Though I guess they kind of, I don't know what the term is exactly, but they're very aware that a pirate thing is just kind of lame because when Sonic arrives, he's like, "Oh, it's pirates." Okay, But yeah. So I'm wondering if we're gonna keep seeing dimensions, if they're gonna get a little more interesting. Like I do like the New York City sort of situation where it's a world where Sonic didn't exist and Tails became a jerk and Amy like just gave her body up or something. Like she's got a bird in her stomach. That's kind of wild. Big's a sanitation worker, and it seems like they all have shitty lives now because Sonic wasn't born. So, it's an interesting start. It's like Back to the Future 2, like the bad future with Biff, who's president, and all that sort of stuff. The one thing that hasn't been answered is all the Eggmen. Like, why are there so many of them? Are they from other dimensions? Are they the same person?
It is weird the way that's set up, because I'm assuming we're gonna see more alternate worlds of some sort, because we haven't found all the shards. We know where 3 of them have been, and I don't know how many there's supposed to be.
Probably 7.
But
there's always 7.
It might be 7, or it might be 5, because there's 5 Eggmen. Although, like, clearly they are not aware of the fact that there are alternate dimensions, alternate universes. They find all this out when Sonic shows up, and the 5 Eggmen are kind of each an aspect of Eggman's personality, right? Like, there's the main one, who I guess is just like your bog standard. He does Eggman stuff, but like, there's an old one because he's old. There's a baby because he acts childish. There's the philosophical one because, like, Eggman has the 300 IQ and thinks he's so above everyone else, and then there's the teen because I guess he is also child. I don't know. Like, it feels like it's aspects of Eggman split apart, and you could make the argument that the versions of Sonic's friends that we're seeing are just one aspect of their personality as well, right? Like Knuckles, like we sort of have the general, or the not the army general type Knuckles in New York City, and it's like, he's the one who's militaristic. He's the one who the one we see shades of in Forces, and then you have one who's kind of, well, like Styx, but I guess maybe the I don't know. It feels like that it's not just it's not just here's a different version, but almost maybe it's a sliver of an aspect of that character, and they've been split apart because it seems like they are all from there. But if Eggman has been split into 5, but they all exist in one world, then why do the other ones exist in different worlds? Because there doesn't seem to be alternate versions of Eggman in those worlds.
Right.
And then so then it's like, well, why did he split up in the first place? Because he was at the center just like Sonic was, and Sonic didn't split up, and he doesn't exist anywhere. And Shadow didn't split up and doesn't exist anywhere. There's some holes there, and it feels like they have a couple different ideas but haven't figured out what is actually happening. And there is this worry that it's never actually going to be explained properly. It's
right.
Just
Yeah, that's my fear, is that they might not explain it and just say, guys, it's just a kid's show. Like, don't expect too much from it. But it's like, yeah, but we just came off of, the Sonic 2 movie, which like got pretty heavy in lore, and then Sonic Frontiers with very plot heavy, lore heavy, and then when you throw Sonic Prime at us with all these different dimensions and telling us it's within the game universe, and then you just go, they're pirates just because, and there was no Eggman pirate, and the Chaos Council just was. There's no, like you're talking about, like his split personality, like that didn't happen. I'm hoping there's more to it.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess Tails is probably the better example of aspects, because it's like the New York City one he's the one that's all super tech savvy, and then the one in the pirate ship is like the kid brother sort of following, like he's the one that is just following you in Sonic 2 and 3. And then the feral one, I guess, is because he's a kid and a fox and he hasn't settled down. I don't know. Like it's there, but I don't even know if it's on purpose.
Right.
That's what kind of throws me off.
Yeah, and we also don't know how long we're going to be waiting. Like this, I mean, moving on to our last section here, like what will 2023 bring us? Well, we already know it's going to have more Sonic Prime. We don't know if it's going to be the rest of the series. I'm hoping it is, because I don't think kids have the attention span that maybe a Cuphead show does. Or man, I don't know if you've ever watched Disenchantment or Disenchanted. I get confused which one's the Disney one, which one's the Matt Groening show. But they really stretched that out. Like they would order 20 episodes and then it would be a year and a half between 10 episodes, to the point where I don't think anyone cares about that show anymore. It's very hard to like get invested when it's taken 4 years to tell like a 30 episode story. So I'm hoping Prime like kind of ramps it up and hopefully concludes by the middle of next year. I don't think we can do 24 episodes over the course of 2 years or something like that. We have more Sonic Frontiers. We're hoping for Sonic Origins Plus, and then the Knuckles movie. Or Knuckles streaming series. So it's interesting that the 4 things we talked about tonight also bleed into 2023 in some respect, or at least we're hoping. So do you, of those 4 things that are continuing on, Knuckles, a potential physical release of Origins, Frontiers DLC, and then the ending of Prime, which one are you looking forward to the most, and which one, I guess, the least? David.
Let's see. Most is, I guess, would be sort of like it's a toss up between the Knuckles show and the Frontiers content. I guess for now I would say Frontiers, like all the Frontiers DLC, just because we don't really know anything about the Knuckles show. We don't know who's involved. We don't know who's making it. All we know is that oh no, I forget his name. The guy who does the voice.
Idris Elba.
Yeah, we know he's involved, but it doesn't seem like the writers of the movie are involved writing the show. So it's like, there's a lot of uncertainty there.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the 3rd movie, but I don't really know what'll happen with the Knuckles show. I hope it's good.
I hope it's happening.
It's such an
They've
unknown,
been very quiet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say the Frontiers is probably right now the one I'm most excited about. And the least excited is, unfortunately, I think it would be Prime. Because I watched it, I'm like, I guess this is fine. I feel like I had a lot more issues with it than some people do. It was sort of like, there was a lot of good Sonic. I really enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed Frontiers. I enjoyed, Origins had some issues, but, at its core, yeah, I enjoy it. And Prime just sort of lost me. I don't know. I guess I also enjoyed, I know we didn't talk about it, issue 50 of IDW came out.
Yes.
That was the big 5-0. So, the comics, there's some stuff going there. Yeah, I don't know. It just, I'll watch the rest of Prime. I'm hoping that personally I'll enjoy the later half or the later 2/3. But for now, I'm just kind of like, I can take it or leave it.
Yeah. How about you, Dakota?
Probably for my favorite would probably be Frontiers. Probably more so the story for the end. I just want to see what else they do for the Ancients and for Sage and stuff like that. Just see what they add on and stuff for the story. Also, I would one up for the movie. I would say the Knuckles series. I'm just neutral on that. More so, I would like to see. I'm kind of thinking there's going to be a trailer, more so kind of near the end of the year and stuff next year for for movie 3 and stuff. So I'd be excited for that. And then probably just not really that excited for Origins Plus if they're making the physical release next year and stuff like that. Just if there's really like a lot more that goes into it and stuff like that, like if they add more than just like a couple like quality of life features and like a couple like extra features like a level select or like maybe like a difficulty like scale or setting and stuff like that too, then I'd be a little more excited. But as of right now,
yeah.
So.
Yeah. If a physical Origins does become just like what you expected it originally to be, and like quality of life improvements, I would say that's the one I'm least excited about, even though I'm really hoping it happens. And I'm a big fan of, you know, physical things. I mean, as you can tell behind me here. So it always bothers me, especially when Sonic stuff is stuck on digital. I mean, I believe Sonic 4 episodes 1 and 2 are the only, I think they're the only digital Sonic titles outside of some re-releases like Sonic Adventure 2 for Xbox 360 and stuff. Never got a physical release, but you know, as far as like most excited, yeah, I'd probably say the Frontiers DLC because it's free. Like, it just kind of blows my mind that that's just stuff's just going to be coming to me. I don't have to do like a season pass or some nonsense. It's really cool. Makes me wonder if they are going to do like, like, you know, I don't know if it's going to become like a Game of the Year edition or something like that. But considering it's such a big seller, maybe they'll do a budget version at the end of next year and include all the DLC on the disc. Maybe that'd be kind of wise of them to do for more casual people who don't know to jump onto the storefront and download all these things. Knuckles series, we know next to nothing about it. I'm kind of fearing that it's been quietly canceled. We just haven't heard anything about it. I mean, if they put James Gunn in charge of it, then you know full well it's going to be canceled. But no, it hasn't been. But it seems so odd that to have Idris Elba fronting a Paramount Plus series, and we've heard next to nothing. My dream would be Maddie Wachowski and Knuckles team up for an 8-episode round-the-world adventure. I honestly think that Maddie should leave Tom and just like marry Knuckles. That's my fan fiction I'm writing, actually. Maddie the Echidna, I think has a nice ring to it. So
right, like an asteroid could hit Earth and she transforms into Echidna because that's the last animal she was in contact with. It's like the Ninja Turtles. Like she high-fived Knuckles, the asteroid hit, and now she's an Echidna. Legally distinct from any Echidna that existed in Archie, of course. But
yeah. Oh man,
I can see it.
This writes itself. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean we've had I think this has been probably the best year for the Sonic franchise in a long time. I mean, can either of you guys think of the last time Sonic's been this persistent, this, I guess, relevant, this mainstream? I mean, he's always been mainstream, but the fact that we've been getting all of this stuff, like, David, I mean, you're Mr. History here. Like, when was the last time Sonic was this big?
I mean, this big. I mean, I feel like it hasn't been since the 90s. I mean, maybe, like, 1993 was a huge year for Sonic, even though, like, that was the year in between 2 and 3, and there was Spinball, but it was, like, both shows, the Happy Meal toys, Sonic CD, the comics. Like, it was everything all at once. The only thing Sonic was missing at that point was a movie. Even though Sonic has had strong years since, like,
Right.
I would say, you know, 99 was strong because the Dreamcast came out and Adventure was there. It didn't translate to the outside media. Like, nobody went, wow, Sonic Underground is the greatest Sonic show ever made.
Yes.
You know? And then, like, in 2003, you get Sonic X, and there are a lot of people who become Sonic fans because of that show.
Right.
But I don't think it translates into the games, because then you get Heroes, which is kind of middling in sales and reviews, and then you get Shadow the Hedgehog after that. So you have, like, all these, you have a lot of it's like there's some that's pretty high up, and then there's stuff that's way down.
Right.
Here it feels like pretty much across the board. Here's the re-release of what's considered the crown jewels of the Sonic franchise. Here's a movie that's done well commercially. I critically, for the most part, I mean, especially like nobody's expecting a Citizen Kane, although Sonic and Citizen Kane could be fun. I want to hear, you know, because he would say Amy Rose, but
Amy Rosebud.
Right. So yeah, just like, just because multimedia doing well pretty much across the board, I think.
Yeah,
and,
everything's clicking for the first time,
not since '93.
And I don't mean to not mention IDW, because you do make a great point. I think IDW's had one of their strongest years. The miniseries have been really good. They finally got out of the whole Like when we were going through a pandemic, Sonic was going through a pandemic, and it was the most grim thing. I absolutely hated that arc because I looked, it took a year and a half. I think even if it only covers like 10 issues, like with delays and things like that, it just kept going. And then I just wanted the metal virus to end. I just wanted everyone to be healthy. I'm like, oh, everyone's dying around me. Let me read a Sonic comic. And then I open it up and Sonic's going, everyone's dying around me, you know. So it was not a very happy thing. But now we're in a pretty cool little phase of the IDW comics. I believe Ian Flynn's going to be coming back on now that he's concluded his writing for Frontiers. I think that's why he stepped away for that time. I think he only wrote Bad Guys, the miniseries, if I'm
right. He did
thinking.
many. He might have done an issue. I don't remember offhand like which issues he's written and which issues Evan Stanley has written, but like he definitely stepped up, and presumably because of his involvement in Forces, and maybe you know what he's been doing a lot of. I know he has his own personal or his non-Sonic projects. I don't know if he stepped away to do the Encyclopedia at all, which I guess technically came out at the end of last year. But this is a lot of. He's been doing a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if he still, it trades off between Ian and Evan, just because she's become ingrained in that whole sphere of, hey, what is Sonic, and we're trying to figure out what Sonic is for the future. And I'm sure, I would hope that Sega would tap Ian for whatever the next game is. Hopefully we won't have to wait 5 years. But if they're going to choose anyone,
wait 5 years. Yeah.
No. I would hope they don't, because they figured out sort of like, here's the base formula. Now maybe it'd only take 3 years to finish it, as opposed to, or like 3 years between instead of 5. It's hard to say, but I'm sure there's going to be projects and things that where he would just have to step away from the comic because he's working on another Sonic thing. So that's there's I don't know. I feel like I lost my point at the end.
No, it's fine. It's cool. And there's also, I mean, if you're looking for some stuff right now that's kind of newish, there is the Tales anniversary comic. I definitely suggest people pick that up. It's just bizarre to see the Game Gear plots of Tales Sky Patrol and the events of Sonic 3D Blast like coming together. I think that's really bizarre. And if you flip to the back, there's some fun behind the scenes stuff about how they would like float, they would ask Sega Japan if they could use Tails Sky Patrol characters, and they were like, yeah, and they signed off on it. And like, this is the first time we've seen those characters' feet in canon, which I think is really funny. Like, they talk about designing their feet and getting sign approval. It also means that I think like Wendy Witchcart is now like one of the few humans to exist in the classic world of Sonic IDW comics. So I thought that was pretty wild. I think like outside of Eggman, right? There's Wendy.
Right, yeah, no, there aren't a whole lot of humans. There's the implication that maybe they exist. There's also that angel statue in CD. Is that Wacky Workbench where she's hiding out, but only in the past? She's replaced by an Eggman statue in the bad future. Ooh. Spooky.
Wow.
But
we've also got the first Chaos action figure, which should be hitting stores right now. Very hard to find. I know people are excited for that. And then Big the Cat has another action figure. I think it's his third or fourth, which is just fantastic. And with Prime toys coming out eventually, I am down for Pirate Big if that becomes a thing.
There's been a lot of big content this year.
It's the year of Big.
Right. He comes back in Frontiers. He's got it's a fishing minigame. It's like, yeah, there he is. There's Big, and he's a featured character in Prime. I do like the fact that Big is just, he's just sort of a guy in Prime instead of. There's the temptation that they could have made him like, oh, he's super dumb, haha. But I'm glad they didn't do that because he's not. He's just, he's a simple man with simple needs.
Right. And his bed is in ruins. right? Because it's in the Mystic Ruins.
That's right. That's right. That's what the song's about.
Yeah.
People don't know.
Fish the day away, my bed's in the Mystic Ruins. So, anyway, well, on that note, I want to thank you guys so much for jumping on to talk Sonic 2022. Looking forward to the next year. Looking forward to chit-chatting with you guys on and off air about whatever comes next. But have a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, enjoy your time with Sonic and his holiday cheer hat. So again, do you guys have anything to plug? Dakota, plug away.
Just my Twitter, just my name, and that's it.
Sounds good. How about you, David?
Yeah, I guess I still have a Twitter. I mean, it still exists for now, so we'll ride that until it crashes into a wall. You know, it's just DT Lurker
Awesome.
at before it, of course, because it's Twitter. And then maybe one day I'll write another article on the front page of Retro.
Oh, please
Sonic
do. I
Retro.
want for Christmas. Oh,
Yeah,
thank you for that gift. Yeah.
We'll
Awesome.
we'll flood it in. I did once upon a time write a bunch of Christmas articles. I feel like that was like a decade ago, where I went through the Fleetway Christmas stories and was like, oh, and then we
I like that.
recorded
Yeah.
staying a long. Didn't we record a Sonic Christmas Blast?
Yeah, a
A long
commentary.
time ago?
You know, I'll
Yeah.
dig that up. Maybe I'll find the audio and people can like play it over, because I know it gets hit with copyright strikes. That's the good old days where I was like, let's upload the entire House of the Dead Yui Bowl movie with commentary, and then I'm like, my YouTube account's locked. What's going on? I'm like, right, copyright exists. Those were the simpler times.
Right.
But
You gotta force people to sync it up on their
yeah,
own.
exactly. But yeah, that's a good idea. I'll look into that, see if that's still there. I think there's like little commercials too. I think there was a whole program. But yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to everyone who stuck with us, watched, listened to our chatter, and we'll see you next year. And I hope to see you guys, one or both of you, on future shows of the SEGAbits Swingin' Report Show live. So from me, Barry, thank you for watching, and David and Dakota, thank you for joining me.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And a happy